questions for you.
We are live. All right. Welcome. My name's Mike Heath, and I'm here with the Unquirer. How do you pronounce that?
Unquirer.
Yeah. And on X. So, Richard, thanks for taking time.
Yeah, of course. Anytime.
So, let's see. I think yesterday, maybe, you posted this. Let me just make it a little bigger. And we're going to talk about that this morning, what you wrote. Okay.
Hey, well, one thing about your podcast that really stuck out at me that you said is you mentioned that we have to get this right. And I know you were talking about the governorship, but I think you were meaning it on a larger scale. And it made me think a lot. It was just weird. You had one line and you're like, we have to get this right. And I think that it started making me think about like the role of maybe like the Christians and Christian fundamentalists in the whole role of this, because on our side, we do have a lot of flaws where we'll have people that are, say the Christians or the part of the movement, but they do get a lot of things wrong. Like there's people that are, a lot of swearing, a lot of cussing, attacking, drinking and stuff. And it started making me think of a lot of like self-reflection, a lot of stuff in our group that we do have to get this right. And that's why, I don't know, you're kind of like a guiding figure with this stuff. I don't know. There's something about that, your podcast that you did that kind of really resonated after I listened to the whole thing. It was good.
Thank you. So, and you put it up on Facebook. You've got I still don't know the ins and outs of Facebook, but you've got something over there and you put it over there as well. What, a channel or a group, or I don't know what you call it.
It's actually, so I did it a little differently. I just did a business page because I found a loophole with Facebook that you can create infinite amount of business pages and they're not linked. You have to use your public account, but they're not linked. There's no way to tell. And you actually have less restrictions with a business page. You can make as many as you want, and you have more options in analytics that you can actually look at your account, and it works the exact same as a regular page. I don't know why people don't just use business pages instead. There's no really reason to use a personal page.
So what's the name of it? The business
page? The Maine X community. And you can actually and you can give access to anyone. So you can say give access to like 5 people and they can respond, post and stuff, and no one will see who posted, but internally you can actually see who commented. So like if I have someone come on and they want to respond to messages, it's always going to show up as the Maine X community, but it can actually, but on our end, we can see who posted that. And that way, if someone says the wrong thing or starts arguing with someone, you can kind of boot them out.
Sure. So I asked you to come on because I wanted to, I was very interested in what you wrote. So, this is a podcast that I did with my friend Paul Medore, and you watched it like you just said, and you wrote, you described it, the show, and then Maine is a cultural battleground right now, online and offline. There are so many moving parts, movements, activists, podcasts. Whoops, what did I do? Podcast, politicians, events, and organizers. Michael is well spoken. It comes from a Christian fundamentalist position. Correct me if I'm wrong. And so I wrote, I think I put a post in there or something, but it's been so long since I've heard that phrase, Christian fundamentalism. I was used to it when I was at the Christian Civic League of Maine, but I left there in 2009. So Christian fundamentalism is a sort of branch of Protestant evangelicalism that started in the early 20th century. So it's a subset within a subset of Western Christianity, right? Western Christianity is Roman Catholicism and Protestantism. And then you get, within Protestantism, you get the denominationalism. And I think there's over 40,000 denominations now. And within that subset of denominations, you've got a sort of grouping of denominations that would choose to identify as evangelical. And that's a term that came into sort of popular use with Billy Graham. And I think he would have been comfortable calling himself or thinking of himself as a fundamentalist, Christian fundamentalist. It's associated among evangelicals with Baptists, for the most part, Christian fundamentalists. And so when I was at the Christian Civic League of Maine, I leaned hard into the term evangelical as opposed to fundamentalist, because fundamentalists identified the group which had a political as well as a ministry responsibility. It identified it too closely with the Baptist wing of evangelicalism. So I describe. I know this is boring as heck. Probably.
No, it's. So I don't think anyone in society, most people don't know this stuff, and it's hard to pull it apart.
Sure, but there are there are hundreds of thousands, millions of Americans, and certainly tens of thousands of Mainers who get married, they get buried when they die, they live with their family through a lifetime inside of this awareness, these religious ideas and differences. And so we all touch these things in Maine, because I like what one sociologist pointed out, to understand America, you have to understand that after 3 generations, every single immigrant, because America is a nation of immigrants, every single immigrant by the 3rd generation is either a Jew, a Protestant, or a Roman Catholic. And this particular sociologist who wrote a book about it said these are the important identity markers to help you understand the conflicts, the strife, the differences within America in terms of ethnicity, because we all speak the same language in America. We all speak English, but obviously we've got divisions, we've got disagreements, we've got we identify differently as Americans, and the most important categories in terms of those differences and ethnicity is Judaism, Protestantism, and Catholicism. So here we are, and I think that's still the case. You've got a situation brewing now where white identity is rising. Did you see the story in the Bangor Daily News about the Easter eggs and the?
Oh yeah, what's funny is I was actually watching a podcaster that's out in the Midwest, and he actually covered it last night. I was like, what the heck?
Yeah. So there you go. I mean, that's Christianity, right? Easter, and then you bring in the eggs, the Easter egg hunt, which is a lot of churches do that. Roman Catholic as well as Protestant do the Easter egg hunts. So it's kind of a cultural thing, not a lot of theology to it, but it's associated with Easter, which is a Christian holiday, the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And so what bugged me about that story that I read is they didn't tell you what the messages were, what they actually said. So it's hard for me to come to a conclusion about, but the story said it was white supremacist, awful, hateful things from a white supremacist standpoint. And
I think the public's so tired of that. No one even, whenever they have articles like that, everyone's just like, okay, come on, please. Yeah, right. It's been beaten like a dead horse for so long.
and it's like all issues. You don't tend to, from the media, get this slanted propaganda, you get this social engineering. They don't even make an effort to try to cover all sides, or even more than one side, really. And then they did this to me all the 20 years I was at the Christian Civic League, they being the mainstream media. They would wrap their story up pretty much by getting 2 or 3 or 4 sources from the side they supported, which the big issue that became identified with me was the gay rights debate over adding sexual orientation to the Human Rights Act. So whenever they called me, it was to just get something that just some little kernel that they could wrap the
whole narrative,
whole
right?
narrative around in terms of proving that I was an idiot. And it was always just a sentence. And they would waste enormous amounts of my time, the print journalists, some of them. And then nothing would get quoted. And the only thing that would get quoted is some twisted misrepresentation of what I told them. And so ultimately, after 20 years of that, we lost because the people of Maine didn't get to think about the issue.
Yeah.
They weren't given an opportunity to engage their minds, to reason about.
The issue that you're talking about is that gay marriage?
This was previous to that. It was adding, the idea was to add sexual orientation to the Maine Human Rights Act. And the Christian Civic League of Maine objected to it on moral grounds, of course, which everybody expected. And we won more than once in statewide voting. We reasoned in the early 90s that we couldn't win by lobbying because their perspective on sexual orientation, which is that homosexuality should be added to the, and then of course anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So
because this leads up to everything. I don't.
Yeah,
it really does lead up to everything, right? Because we're kind of.
Oh yeah.
So as a Christian, I mean, so do you still consider yourself? So you don't consider yourself a fundamentalist. What do you consider yourself?
Well, I entered the Catholic Church in 2020, so those labels kind of don't fit Catholics. So the label that would fit me now as a Christian would be Catholic.
Do you feel like Catholics, Christians in general, they're kind of going through like a humiliation ritual by by everyone that's trying to take them down? Because like the last Pope was ridiculous on so many levels, right? Mm-hmm. You have churches that are draped in flags that promote gay, people being gay and trans, but then it's also the pride flag. So you're literally draping a flag that is one of the sins, pride, over your church.
And that, right. And that subset would be the mainline Protestant churches are doing that. And the Anglican Church, which is the British church that was created by King Henry.
And then the Catholics are, not all of them, obviously, but then there's like the Catholic Charities and other Catholic groups that are bringing in hundreds of thousands of foreigners into our country, facilitating that. Right.
Yeah, right. What happened with the Catholic Church is they took money from the United States government to help pay their bills, the bills of the Roman Catholic Church, for resettling immigrants. And now they've been, of course, painted with this illegal issue, right? Illegal immigrants. I haven't done any kind of a deep dive into that. To me, it's simple. If they're illegal, they don't belong here. So deport them.
So but the Catholic Church they've actually held strong, not letting female ministers. Am I getting that right? But but other churches are now allowing it.
Protestantism, that's an issue within Protestantism. Within Roman Catholicism, it's debated, priests getting married, that sort of thing, but I'm not aware of any significant debate within the Roman Catholic Church about priests, about women being allowed to become priests. There may be a discussion about it, but I don't think it's got a lot of wind in its sails.
And the previous Pope also made a lot of declarations. I don't know what the term is that they use, but made a lot of declarations that actually went against Catholic values. Because I remember him saying, there's something about him. There was a lot, but it seemed like everything that he was saying, it wasn't going over the line, but it was just walking that line that was inching more and more of that humiliation ritual that's happening over the world in the West with Christians.
Right. I think what happened to do the issue justice would take more time than we've got. But,
yeah.
because it literally, I mean, religion is a big issue. It's a huge issue. It's a global issue, right? You've got religion everywhere in the world, and there are different religions, of course. But in the West, you've got a civilization that was built over, after the collapse of Rome, over 1,000 years, from 500 to 1500, where there was one version of Christianity that was one version of Christianity that was in conflict with paganism for 1,000 years, and that was the Roman Catholic Church, headquartered out of Rome, with a pope as the leader. So a single man being the leader, is kind of monarchical. And then, of course, you had monarchies during that entire time in all the European countries. But the Roman Catholic version of Christianity went head to head with paganism for 1,000 years.
Yeah.
And Roman Catholic Christianity, through its theological and philosophical work, came to influence deeply the what we currently enjoy for rights and culture, right? The definition of marriage, all the moral stuff that we hardly ever talk about anymore. A lot of those ideas were birthed in the cross currents between paganism and the Roman Catholic Church. And then Christianity split in about 1500 with Martin Luther, and that's when Protestantism. So it sort of broke, and then America became the most Protestant country in the world. And
Protestants have like more of a is it more of a subjective view of?
Protestant. It remains that way today. America is the most Protestant country in the world. Britain would probably be second. I'm sorry. Repeat your question.
Yeah. So the Protestants, are they a little bit more? They subjectively look at everything and interpret the literature. It's hard because most people that are either atheists, cultural Christians, even just basic Christians, it's hard to untangle like the difference between all of these, because Protestants, I think they allow like transgender ministers now, female ministers, completely draping their churches fully with pride flags, trans flags.
You get that for sure. Yeah. And in the Protestant denominations that are older, that started in Europe, with the exception of the Congregational Church, which is the Puritans, but that was a movement that started in Europe. The Puritans, and that's New England, by the way. New England is culturally, religiously, probably more Puritan than it is anything else, because the Puritans were the ones who landed in Boston. John Winthrop, 1630. John Winthrop was the first governor of the Massachusetts Bay Colony, and so they were out to purify the Anglican Church, King Henry's church, from England. And the way that purification sort of worked out after 1630 up until today is it became the Congregational Church. So we have a Congregational Church right here in Augusta, Maine. It's a big granite edifice just above that tavern that you and I have enjoyed fellowship in. Just at the top of the hill, that's the Congregational Church, which is Puritanism.
Is it frustrating watching that? I mean, you've seen a rise of a lot of Christian leaders on social media, like they're kind of blossoming right now. Mm-hmm. It does seem frustrating that you'll have Islam and Muslims pushing back against certain woke policies, and they're winning. But you don't see many Christian. Well, maybe the Christian groups have done it, but then the media just smears them so bad that no one wants to get anywhere near it.
Yeah, that's part of it. I mean, I've been pushing back against the woke thing my entire adult life. Spent 20 years doing so professionally as the spokesman for the Christian Civic League of Maine. And we were the go-to group pushing back against woke. And when I left, when I was forced out, the Christian Civic League of Maine sort of faded to the background a bit on that issue. And Laurel Libby jumped to into the headlines, and of course that's very evident today. She's now thinking about governor, and her base is something called the Dinner Table, which is a group within the Republican Party which has sort of dinners, potlucks in churches around Maine, and they've become a real fundraising powerhouse within the right of center Republican coalition, focused, I think, exclusively on social issues. So now, when I was doing this almost 20 years ago, the Christian Civic League of Maine was the very dominant group on woke, on everything woke, because it was the only institution that had stepped up to carry the debate of Christianity with respect to the idea of sexual orientations, there being multiple sexual orientations. And so we carried that debate all by ourselves with some support from the Christian Coalition, Ralph Reed's group at the national level. They're no longer, I don't think they're exist anymore, but
and you don't support Laurel Libby for governor, correct?
Not at this point. We need a man like Paul LePage with a little bit more depth, more in terms of being able to discuss morality in broad terms, morality and religion. But we need a strong, clear thinking, bold man to step up and finish burying the woke nightmare that you and Tim, the Truth Slinger, and so many other people, and Laurel Libby also, are doing such great work resisting.
I think your analysis of Bobby Charles, I agreed with you on it, where he feels very gimmicky, and my concern is that he just doesn't know. He's not as in touch with the problems, and I could be wrong, but like you said, there's no like, he doesn't have anything posted. He doesn't have any plans. He's just kind of hitting the buzzwords, very gimmicky video. Like Trump, obviously Trump won, a lot of people won. They didn't use that 1990s, early 2000 gimmicky politician video, right?
With the axe.
Yeah, right.
It felt very. It feels his whole entire campaign has this incredibly off-putting boomer vibe.
Yeah, you aren't wrong. You were so spot on when you covered that. Because at first I watch it, and then I have my younger self from the 90s and 2000s. That part's like, oh, I kind of like this. But then I go, no, I don't want someone to be gimmicky. I just want them to look in the camera and be like, this is the stuff that's going on. This is how I'm going to fix it. That's kind of like what Trump did. He didn't sit there and be like, hey, I'm Trump, and I, like throwing tarts. Like, I'm going to take it was just.
Well, yeah, I'm chuckling because the whole reason I still support Trump, and the reason I supported him in the beginning in January of 2016, is because he's a man. That's all. He's a man who speaks his mind. He knows his mind. He speaks his mind, and he just keeps moving, and nothing stops the guy. Yeah. And he's a force of nature, and that's what Maine needs in its governorship. Would you support
someone like Jared Golden?
I don't know a thing about him. I mean, I just haven't paid any attention. Probably not. I mean, he comes out of the Democrat side, right?
Yeah. He's one of the only Democrats that are pushing back against everything that they're doing. But it could be staged and phony.
And it's early, right? And I'm not saying I wouldn't, but he's got big problems with me on the moral issues. In order to stay within the Democrat coalition, you got to be pro-abortion and all that stuff.
I think Laurel Libby boxed herself in. I think she's screwed. And I've seen this with other politicians and figures when they get because right now, like you said, she owns the transgender sports issue. She doesn't just own it. That is her. You don't become a governor because you're going to battle that issue, right? And so unless she can pull herself out and actually start focusing on other issues, how long can we go about it? It does suck all the things that happened to her, but over time, people are getting fatigued by it. And then, like Riley Gaines,
Yeah.
right? Like, what do you know about her? She's a one-person issue. It's that thing. She rides that pony every single day. You don't know any other political views. She can't speak about any other subject. And Laura Libby, every single day, it's just flood after flood about biological males in female sports. Obviously, it's a great issue. But if you're going to end up winning something, you need to have the whole aura about you because one, she's going to rile up the base again, the leftist base against her. So many people are going to vote against her. Yeah, she'll get a lot of people behind her here, but I don't know. I feel like she actually, if she doesn't pull herself out of the mud, she's going to be in trouble.
Yeah, that happened to me. I ended up getting tagged by that sexual orientation issue, and it was my fault. I felt like we needed to stay true to resisting that even after we'd lost. And so I'm sure that in retrospect, you're right. I mean, if she wants to be governor of all the people of Maine, she's going to have to somehow broaden.
Talk more about taxes. And I don't even mean appealing to the left either, but like people, you're not going to vote your governor based on her being a victim, right? So, and this is the perception of her right now is, yes, she's battling, but she's also a victim who's lost. She got censured. They're not winning right now. And in the end, also, who's going to win? If Maine does get defeated on this, who's going to get the glory from it? It'll be Trump, right? Laura Libby's not in a position where she can even win this battle. Like the battle can be won, but she's not going to be holding the victory. It's going to be like, hey, I was a victim of that battle, and I'm glad we won it in Maine, but I was censured, smeared, attacked, and then Trump came in and sued the state and won, right? So in the end, no matter the situation, she never comes out as like this champion of this situation. She comes up back as a person that got censured, posted a minor's face unblurred. I actually have no problem with that. It was a public sports meeting, but she's actually. I don't think that politicians that come off as victims, like Riley Gaines was a victim, in that context of a biological male, you don't nominate your leader based on being a victim. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. People look by definition for a leader, for leadership. And that's where I think Laurel is weak. She's getting her 2 months of fame. I mean, it keeps going on and on, lots of media and stuff. But part of that is, I think that whole transgender issue is a fait accompli, and to keep spinning it and keep fundraising on it and stuff. And the other thing is people are disgusted by it, and so managing the issue is difficult. To say the least. I mean, look at what Tim's going through with being drugged into court. I think he had to drive all the way down out of his, his wilderness getaway or a hideout out there, and he's in Augusta today doing some kind of paperwork.
Yeah, they're destroying each other, and
we won, but like you said, it's not because of what's going on in Maine. It's because of Trump.
Yeah,
it's being won at the national level, and Maine is still embroiled. I mean, Mills and the left and the Democrats still think they can win on this issue.
They think, on every issue. Like, they are so emboldened all across the state.
Yeah. So,
where do you think that goes with that whole issue with the Human Rights Act? Like, where does Maine go with this? We're at a weird impasse with it.
Well, yeah. The big mistake, I think that whole Human Rights Act idea was a mistake from the beginning. I think we'd have been much better off to just apply constitutional ideas related to fair treatment, fair and equal treatment in terms of like the whole point of it is banking, public accommodations. I think there's 3 or 4 categories. It's been so long since I worked that issue, I can't name them right off the tip of my tongue. But there's really no reason to have gone after it the way we did with the civil rights movement. We should have just kept it local. Let the states and the towns handle the conflicts that there really weren't huge conflicts. I mean,
that's what I want. And I know you wanted to cut it short, but what was the whole purpose of this, and what conflicts even, like, because they have to cry victim all the time. What was the actual issue from back in your era about this? Like, what problems were people having with sexual orientation?
Well, they go all the way back to the beginning of Maine in the 1600s. If you had 2 women living in the apartment, on this above the shop on the street and in some harbor town in Maine, nobody cared.
Yeah,
nobody cared, and unless when they cared, when those 2 women decided to make a big issue out of what they were doing in private.
Yeah,
and then make it public. I mean, so it never. And then the whole civil rights thing was spun up mostly because of it was a color revolution, and I think it was run by the FBI and the CIA, the intelligence agencies, and it was they spun it up to divide Americans, to keep us from to keep us on the plantation, so to speak, to keep us down, keep us fighting with one another. Just like the intelligence agencies have done all over the world.
Yeah.
In order to control populations, to keep the populations from really thriving. Meaning what? Meaning, we get married, we have families, we think of building an inheritance that we're going to pass on to our children, and we work hard every day, and we play hard every day, and we enjoy life. But everything's political now, and it's that way for a reason. Who
do you think's doing this to the West and to us, to Maine, to the country? Like, if you follow the pathway, is it China? Is it Russia? Is it Axis? Is it all of them? Or is it just Europeans, World Economic Forums? Like, what is the primary source? And is this an attack on our country to pretty much bring it down? I mean,
it's definitely. So I think it's the answer to your question is that it's primarily it's a theological crisis. It's a theological crisis. It's a religious problem, and it's very Western because look at what's happening globally right now. You've got China, which has a very non-Christian religious profile. Mm-hmm. And you've got Russia, which has an Eastern Orthodox Christian religious profile now, coming out of communism, which was atheism, but they've become very Christian, because they're the seat. Moscow is the seat of Eastern Orthodoxy ever since Constantinople was conquered by the Muslims in the 1400s. So, and they've returned to that. After they threw off atheism, they've returned to Russian Orthodoxy. But what's happening in the world is these non-Western economies, cultures, peoples are coming together.
Yeah, they are.
Economically, they're coming together, and they're coming together against the West.
And then simultaneously, the West, they're convincing as many people to have as many abortions as possible, to be gay, to be transgender, to have men hate women, and to have women hate men. Everything they seem to be everything that seems to be done to us culturally is to reduce our population and prevent birth rates. These are actually, and it's weird because listening to like a lot of the stuff that happened during World War II with like the Soviets, Nazis, and the communists, like in China, they specifically tried to reduce populations through weird methods, not just like the basic sterilizations, but separating groups and getting them so that they don't actually reproduce. and it feels like, because you don't see little Mexican boys walking around in dresses, right? Like you don't see 8-year-old black kids wearing dresses and being paraded around. You have this humiliation ritual that's going on in the West, not just with Christianity, but the West in general, and convincing them not to reproduce, convincing them not to love their country, convincing them not to love their God or their family. And it is only in the West. And it feels like we're at war, but no one's declared it yet. And it's more, I don't know. I'm sorry if we keep going too long.
No, that's okay. But I just want to, so one of the most, to answer your question more pointedly, there's a scholar who started teasing out that question in the 80s. He's written about 50 books. I'm bringing him to Maine on June 14th. His name is Dr. E. Michael Jones, and he's 75 years old, but he's very, very, you can find him all over the internet and listen to him. But he wrote this book, The Jewish Revolutionary Spirit, which, and its impact on world history. And it's now, this is an older version, but it's now published in three volumes. And what led him to write that book was Libido Dominandi, which I've got upstairs, which we've asked him to speak to. Libido, it's Latin, libido, right? The libido sexual. Dominandi, the dominant sexual desires. So the sexual desires dominate everything. And so he wrote that book first, and then he wrote The Jewish Revolutionary Spirit and its impact on world history. The bottom line of his narrative is that things are getting better because logos, which is the Greek word for, it's the Greek word for word actually in the Bible, John 1:1. The verse in the Bible, John's gospel begins with, in the beginning was the word. That word there, the English word, is translated logos in Greek. And in the beginning was the word was God, and the word was with God, and the word was God. And that was the seed that became the Trinity, the Christian Trinity, God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And this guy Jones, who I'm bringing to Maine June 14th, is arguing that logos is rising. So the word reason is, logos can be translated reason. So reason is rising. We are headed toward, because this is happening. What you and I are doing right now is happening globally.
Yeah, it is. Because
of the internet. And what is happening right now? Well, we are reasoning together. We're thinking out loud together. We're having ideas together. We're participating in logos rising. And so John's big idea 2,000 years ago was that Jesus Christ, the person who was crucified and rose from the dead, is reason itself. He's logos. In the beginning was the word was with God, and the word was God. The word was God. So reason was God. So when the Pharisees killed Christ, they killed reason. And so what ended up happening with that group, the Jews, is they developed a revolutionary spirit. That revolutionary spirit was born in the murder of their Messiah, which is what the Roman Catholic Church still holds to today officially, and what the Roman Catholic Church has taught as dogma and doctrine since Christ was killed for 2,000 years. And so this is what we're dealing with. It's a theological issue in the West, and it has to do with what I'm saying here, because you can't get away from the fact online now, because mainstream media has lost its grip on the imagination of Western peoples, and indeed peoples all over the world because of the internet. People know how many bankers, especially the really powerful ones, are Jewish. People know how many of the immense media corporations are controlled by Jewish interests, and people are talking about it.
But can I push back a little bit on that?
Yeah.
So the problem about that I see some of the people, I wouldn't even say just on the right, is that they'll sit there and they'll say that there's overrepresentation but by Jews in like media and stuff like that, movies, and they're not wrong. But the problem is that their analysis of the situation coming from here, looking at the Jews, is the exact same thing that the left is doing, but with groups looking at white people. So the literally word for word, let's just take any identity group. Women are being taught men are represented in all these fields and all these things, and we have to fix that. And they're stealing our money, and they've been oppressing us. Black people are told, you've been raped and pillaged and used as slaves by white people, and they're overrepresented worldwide in all these positions of power and all this other stuff, and they're the problem. And then you have the right, there's people on the right, they're like, oh, well, we're being oppressed because it's the Jews, because they're overrepresented. Literally every single group has the exact same narrative against another group. And that's literally what happened during World War II, not putting aside like Nazi Germany. All the different groups end up having a problem, right? And then they have to come up with a solution. So if you sit there and you tell the youth and everyone that the problem is this physical identity group or religious group or whatever, and it's actually fractured all throughout our society right now, is that the exact same narrative that comes from each person. Everyone has their favorite identity to attack, right? Mm-hmm. And sorry, I didn't mean to ramble, but so I have no problem untangling this, but I just get a little worried that like the narrative against, because there's truths with every one of those narratives, right? Like, so if women go, oh, I've been stuck, we were oppressed and we couldn't vote. Yeah, you couldn't vote, and there's so many details, but everyone has their own grievances, and everyone's saying that they're oppressed by this overrepresented group that is unfairly hoarding all the wealth, and we have a problem. And then the solution is what? Because if you're going to push that narrative, then you can't tell Black people or women or the other groups that they can't have their grievances against the identities that they don't like, right? Mm-hmm. Because are white men overrepresented in most corporations, CEOs, and so they've actually created a solution. So you have California, you have different countries now that are saying you cannot have more than 50% men on these things. This is just the beginning stages to the solution, right? And then what's the solution to overrepresentation of white people? DEI, now you can't have too much. This is just the very beginning. And so I'll let you keep going, but how is that, and how is it any different than the same narrative that they're all spewing?
Well, back to the point I made about it being a theological problem. So that means we've got to begin, if we're going to get somewhere, we have to begin talking to one another about religion, no matter what your religion is, even if you've got no religions. That's the starting point, because what we're confronted with here is a problem with morality and the moral law. The whole idea of whether there even is a moral law. Well, there is a moral law.
Yeah.
And there is reason, and there is religion, and we ought to be talking about it. So then, to address your point about the different groupings and the Jews being just another one of the groups, the point that Dr. Jones makes is that the problem is the revolutionary spirit. It's the revolutionary spirit of the Jews. The fact that they killed reason itself when they killed their Messiah. They killed reason. And so this is why they're identified with this over-the-top audacity. The Yiddish word, I think, is chutzpah. They always go too far. And many people, millions, tens of millions of people on Earth are, in fact, the global, whatever the group's called, UN group that sits in judgment on genocides, has ruled that Gaza's a genocide. It's going too far. Even in terms of warfare, it's going too far. What's going on there is going too far. It's chutzpah. It's over the top. It's the revolutionary spirit. And so the answer to your question is we need to do a lot more of what you and I are doing right now.
Yeah.
With across the backyard fence, on the internet, with live streaming, with videos. And we need to be really sensitive to when we're being manipulated in order to do a like, create, push like or share or quote, we need to push back against that. And that's one of the reasons I really enjoy talking to you. And I like what you and Tim.
So the left
you're focusing on the local stuff,
So the left's narrative is that white people or Europeans have the colonizer spirit, and they actually use that term, and that they've committed mass genocide, and they've actually exploited and wiped out millions upon millions of groups, whether they're Native Americans, indigenous, enslaved, slavery, yada yada yada, all that stuff. So if we're gonna have a discussion about one group, you can't deny the left their grievances, right? And so they're demanding a solution, and let's neither of us are leftists, but how would we deny them their grievances if you're demanding your conversation against one group and that you're saying that they're committing genocide and all this other stuff, but the left is actually declaring the same exact grievances but against you?
Well, we were wrong. The English did not handle the Native Americans in a moral way. And America has not acted in a moral way since World War II with the countries that we've exploited, which are many around the world economically.
So should you pay the price for your fathers?
in order to get resources? What's that?
But should you pay the price for the crimes of your fathers?
Well, I mean, yes and no. I wish we had fathers anymore. I mean, nowadays in America, ever since the beginning, ever since the revolution, we did away with the rights of the firstborn, and everything's equal. When the father dies, the family dies in America, and it's been that way now for 230 years.
No, but do you think that the left's solution, because they have their problem, which is white people, generally straight white men. They've openly said this infinite amount of times. So the problem by the left is straight white men. And do you feel that straight white men should pay a price for the crimes of their fathers? I don't mean their first father, but like the founding fathers, the white race in general. That's the grievances that you're hearing coming out of like Africa. China pushes it, South America, Mexico, obviously Native Americans. The leftist Marxist ideology is that the problem is straight white men, and they've broken that down through intersectionality, and that the solution would be that we pay the price for our fathers. Do you agree that there should be a price that has to be paid?
No. I mean, what you've described is Marxism, really.
Yeah.
And so, no. I think we have to. Move ahead, valuing what is really valuable. And politics is important, but it's not everything. And dividing over these white, straight, gay, these they're really imposed categories, to quote Dr. Jones, they're categories of the mind. They're not categories of the reality. They've been created and put upon us in order to accomplish a political objective. And that political objective is to keep us at one another's throats and to more and more separate, so that we become more and more alone in our in terms of the way we live our lives. And we're not made that way as human beings. We need one another. We need to come together. We need to,
Yeah. No, you're not wrong.
we just stop like Mainers. We're all Mainers. We need to work toward what that is, what that needs to be in the future, and what it is today. We're all here. We work here. We go to the hospital here. We get sick here. We die here. We live here. We go to the coastline here. We work in the little shops during the summer, the tourist shops, and we work in the woods.
Yeah.
We are all Mainers, and we work here and we live here, and we love being here. And so let's love being here with one another, and let's move ahead, finding out what that is going to look like tomorrow and the next month and next year, especially outside of politics. What's it going to look like?
I don't know. Here's the issue. 8 years ago is that when a lot of this came flooding in, was really when I blossomed. I started experimenting stuff before I was even on the internet. So I started going to my friends, strangers and stuff. And maybe I told you this, and I would look at, and I did this to multiple good, close friends of mine. I would be trying to tell them what was going on. And they were like, what are you talking about? You're crazy. And I go, let's do it. And one of my friends.
Hey, Paul Madore joined us.
Hello.
Hey, Richard.
How you doing? Good.
Right, did you just come in, Paul?
No, I've been here a while. I've been listening to you guys.
Okay.
So I have a quick story to tell you. So 8 years ago, and I did this over and over again in front of my wife, in front of my friends, and I would look at my friend. My friend Matt was one of the first ones. We're at his house. There's a big party. I'm trying to explain all the stuff that's happening culturally, and he's like, they're all just kind of making fun of me a little bit. His daughter comes home. I think she was probably around like 14 or so. And I go, I'll prove it right now. And I looked at his daughter and I said, I have a quick question. I go, can you point to the cisgendered straight white male of privilege who owes society reparations? And without hesitation, she looked over and pointed at her father. But the thing is, I didn't just do this once. I did this multiple times. So when my wife and I were camping at a campground, we used to do that. We did it to this father that was from upstate New York. His 8-year-old boy was sitting there. We're sitting around a fire. We're drinking beers. I'm trying to tell him about this stuff. He doesn't even care that much. And I did the same exact phrase. I said it to his 8-year-old son. He instantly, without hesitation, pointed to his father. And
let me ask you, Richard, what do they want for reparation? How do they want them to make reparation?
It's not even that. The fathers didn't even know what I just said to the kids. They didn't understand a single term. It was like I just spoke Chinese to them. But somehow the kids knew, right? So yes, there's the actual breaking down that statement, but then the underlining thing is actually much darker. When I was listening to Anti-Human podcast,
excuse me, Richard. How does she want them to make reparation? Does anybody have an idea of how that's done?
Oh yeah, it'll definitely be done because we have the left has a problem, and they're on the path of a solution. Right? This is a standard communism, and the problem is straight white men, colonizers. And right now they're in the process of decolonization initiatives, dismantling whiteness. They have these murals at colleges right now, little murals that say dismantle whiteness. And so reparations isn't just going to go towards Black people. It's going to be pretty much demanded worldwide by all the cultures around the world that unite to demand reparations from white men, pretty much, right? And it's going to trickle down the hierarchy, and those reparations could be taxes you already have it in a weird way with DEI.
Redistribution of wealth.
Yeah, of course. So it's actually already happening. If you go and look at, like, Janet Mills actually did a program, executive order, that allowed money for businesses, and it allowed she listed all the people that could apply, right? You could have just made it pretty easy and just said everyone can get it except for straight white men. You could get it if you're a female-owned business, immigrant-owned business, a person of color-owned business, BIPOC, indigenous, right? Literally this massive list. I'm like, you could just save a little bit of time, just right? Everyone can get it except for. So what's happening is that you're paying for that through your tax dollars, and you're not even allowed to use that to start a business. What
percentage of the population do you think is fully aware of this?
The students, 100%. Yeah, I think that the world underestimates what's going in their mind. And so I was listening to the podcast. I'll make this really quickly. And it was this rural guy so he survived the war and everything. And then he was actually talking about the students. They just couldn't get it. These were rural farmers. And in these cities, out of nowhere, their sons, their daughters, they came back out in a wave, and they couldn't even understand what they were saying. These farmers and rural people had no clue what had happened.
Yeah.
And in a short time, just like with Mao, with the kids going against the parents didn't even understand this was happening, but the kids have been programmed. And that phrase I say to people, the fact that I can look at a kid, an 8-year-old kid, and say, point to the cisgendered straight white male of privilege who owes society reparations.
Can you say that a little slower?
Yeah. Cis straight white male of privilege, a CIS, right? So, like, you know what that is, right?
Cisgendered. No, I know.
Yeah. So if cisgendered straight white male of privilege who owes society reparations, right? That's all of it. That's the problem. And
that's you, Paul Medor.
Oh yeah.
Cisgendered.
Yeah. That's you.
And actually, Michael can attest to this. When I call up these leftists, I can speak in a way that every one of them actually understands me and thinks I'm one. I've studied them for so long, and people go, "How can you get these people to talk to you?" Because they are so smart that if you tried to call them up, they would instantly hear language coming out of your mouth, and they go, "They're not one of us." They are so well tuned in this. I've had to study it so much, and even Steve Robinson's like, "How do you get these?"
Let me share something with you real briefly here.
Yeah.
When I first met Michelle Malkin, she's an investigative reporter for Fox News prior to her going into semi-retirement. She's the one who blew the whistle on the invasion. In fact, she published a documentary called Invasion. It's hard to find because there are so many YouTube publications called Invasion, but hers is called Invasion. It's the immigration invasion. It's the first horde of Eastern European males and females, mostly males, that came illegally, were brought in a large, no joke here. I saw this myself. I saw the documentary of illegals came out of the hull of a ship. The front just dropped. They were huge transports. And they landed in Eastern Europe from all the Baltic states and all the.
What's the time frame, just to get context?
This probably happened in 2012, 2014.
Okay. And so I've watched these Eastern European. I've seen it with African and Middle Eastern and stuff.
There were a lot of that, but it was a multinational.
Yeah.
When they landed, listen. They were told that there were people and food and supplies, everything that they needed to continue their existence until they got into Europe, but there was nobody there. And when they landed, they began to traverse across these states that they were in, and they took everything.
Yeah,
farmers, and whoever they were, whether farmers or the agrarian culture, wherever it was, as they came into these cities, they took everything. It was hundreds of thousands of them. You can't conceive. What you're telling me is just a remake of what took place, and it happened. Well, they went into Europe. They went into Germany. I'm telling you, I'm
not disagreeing. I've known about this for over a decade. I've been watching it. I've been watching the flooding.
Are we faced with another crisis like that? Is that what's going on here?
That was way worse. That's one aspect. That's one finger of the communist fist.
Well, right? I understand, but how will this take place? Look. All right,
it's going to be global. So my guess, there's many different possibilities and theories. My guess is that we're having a global communist revolution. So yeah, you're going to see it locally, but I think it's being orchestrated for once on a global scale that you've never seen before. And because what happens is that the communists, the Nazis, the communists, all of them are the exact same. They have to create a one target to get everyone to rally to hate that one target. So like the communists did with like rich people and stuff like that. Nazis did it with Jews.
Is it racial?
No, not always. No. So what happens is that you just have to get everyone to hate one group, and you can organize everyone against them. So if you look at the institutions and the universities in Africa, South America, Central America, do you know that they teach them the same stuff about decolonization and anti-white rhetoric in those schools? So what they're going to do is they're going to end up getting pretty much the globe is being taught that Western white people are the problem. They're colonizers. And
it is racial. It is racial.
It is, yes. There's an aspect to it, and it's actually broken down. So Du Bois, which was a Marxist from the 50s, I believe it was, went over to the CCP, and he's a black communist from America, actually helped them devise a system where they call something whiteness. Whiteness is both capitalist and white. So it's actually both. It's race plus it's capitalism. And what's funny is that a lot of the terms that we use actually was devised by like a communist in America from the South that traveled. You can look it up. That actually traveled to the CCP and told them how to take down America. Literally, like he actually writes extensively about whiteness, the term whiteness, blackness.
Well, they're revolutionaries, no question about it. Well, maybe counter-revolutionaries.
Have you heard about the New People's Cartel? See, there's so many things that I've been watching over the past 10 years. The most popular cartel group that exists right now is a freaking communist cartel group that's actually funded by the CCP called the New People's Cartel. Yeah, they're the most they're the most influential. Right. You know what they do? And I was actually just listening to this guy that fled Mexico to come here. He said, you guys don't even know what you're about to deal with. These the new communist cartels that are working with the CCP, they actually go and they take over the schools directly in Mexico. They start talking about Marxism, socialism, and they actually have a blend of the cartel movement with communism that's happening in Mexico. Simultaneously, to the north of us, we have Canada, which is in this weird struggle between its allegiance to China and to the West. Right. So if you look at America and you actually wanted to think what type of allies we have under a right-wing regime, we don't have many at all. Like ideologically, Mexico now, Canada, Europe, UK, none of these socialist countries actually align with the Trump administration or any conservative administration that we have. Like I think it's far more dire globally than most people even have any perception of. Like we do battle like these local issues, and I try not to talk about these bigger things. I actually have more knowledge on the more global stuff than I do any of this local stuff. My attention on the local things is actually something new that in the past 2 years.
Hold your thought, Richard. Mike, what do you think of all this?
So, I'm sorry?
What do you think of all this?
So, yeah, well, what I think is this, Richard. So your questions are awesome. You know, the conversation we had focused on religion during the first hour was really important and helpful to me and hopefully to you. But to jump up to a 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 foot view of the West and of the crisis facing the globe right now, I would challenge you to seriously consider joining us at this event on June 14th. And it's June 14th. It's a Saturday. It's a symposium, and it's going to be this guy, this scholar. We're bringing him to Central Maine, and you would make a great contribution to it. And I promise you, and Paul can.
Mike is he's understating everything that he has said. He's understating it. What your encounter with E. Michael Jones is going to be the most profound. It's going to be the most profound.
Yeah, you'll never forget it. I promise. And he'll answer he's very conversational. It's not like you're not going to a thing where you're just going to sit there and listen to a lecture. We're going to there's going to be questions.
We're going to have to give you a seatbelt and keep you to the chair.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm going to insist that they have seatbelts.
So I'll send you the link, Richard, for the event. It's free, and you would be near the top of the list for me of people that I would want in the room. You would be near the top of the list because of what you're doing on X.
Well, you're a thinker,
yeah,
Richard. You're a thinker, and
you're starting right, and you're starting to touch the.
But you need tools in your box, okay? You need tools. You need implements in your box that you can handle this information. It's got to be perceived in the right order, like what Mike was saying. You've got to look at this in the right order. I'm not denying anything that you're saying. I'm all ears. I'm really interested in what you have to say.
Right.
Well, what do you think is causing all this in the West? That's a problem with our group is that everyone on the right has
communism.
Well, it's
It's Marxism. It's communism.
What I see in your narrative, in your questions, and in your work on X is that it is politically effective. It's ideologically coherent in many ways. It's philosophically helpful. It's helpful in terms of philosophy, but it's absent any sort of appreciation. Well, you have an appreciation for it, but you really need to go deeper on theology, religion. Even if you're not religious, even if you're not, even I know you are. You're a conservative Christian. I'm sorry, cultural Christian. But go deeper on the Christian part of that phrase. Go deeper, and it's going to help you. It's going to help you strategically. I promise. It's going to help you strategically and politically. And that's going to help Tim, and that's going to help Corn Pop. who I love.
You guys are coming in. You know, what I picture is Mike and I driving down the highway. You know, you're going through Boston, and out of nowhere is a side lane coming out of the boroughs right onto the highway, and that's you. Okay, you're coming onto the super highway of culture. And if you don't have the tools, if you don't have
politics, go ahead.
And politics, if you don't have the tools, if you don't have the implements needed to sort this out and understand and put things in the right order, it's going to be crazy.
Well, what do you think's in the right order?
You're not going to be able to resist the centrifugal force that is going to throw you out into wilderness. You and your children and your family. I don't know if you have children or not, but and your family. I'm concerned about that, about my family, which is why I spend so much time with them. My wife was with my daughter when her husband was traveling to England last week. She was alone for 10 days with 4 children, and my wife moved in to keep her center and her order together so that she wouldn't lose her mind. Well, it's not that fragile. She's dealing with postpartum. That complicates matters. She had a baby about 3 months ago, and it's really affected her biologically. Not that she's not used to it, but that's just the way it is. But it's the same with my other sons and daughters. You've got to keep the family unit together. And it takes tools. It takes implements to do that, to deal with the culture, to understand in proper order what's happening.
Bring Morgan. Morgan's your wife, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, bring her if you can.
She'll go. We do everything together.
Yeah, no, there's no charge.
It's not going to do you any good to go in there alone. It's a very good suggestion.
Yeah, and I hope Tim can make it, and Tim and Jennifer. But anyway, what you're doing is everybody's watching. Not everybody, but a lot of.
Is that my phone?
A lot of principals inside the State House, inside the establishment, are watching what you guys are doing. I don't think they're worried about it, but they're watching it. You've got their attention. So
I wanted to jump in here. My other phone is ringing, and it's ringing. It shouldn't ring because it doesn't have a SIM card, but it's an internet call. And Mike, you know who's calling, right?
Oh yeah,
Edward. And the reason why he's calling is because I won't take his calls anymore. And maybe that might be a good segue to tie this all together. I won't take his calls anymore because he doesn't want to listen. I'm pissing in the wind. And I don't know what the problem is, because he calls me. It's not like I'm trying to make him believe something that's not relevant.
What does he refuse to believe?
He doesn't have a center of gravity that helps him process everything around him. He says he's political, but the only time he gets political is when he wants to yell at me and tell me what all the problems are. And when I tell him what he needs to do, he explodes.
What? Hello?
What? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear everybody.
Did I do something?
No.
Can you hear me all right?
Richard, can you hear us?
Richard.
The audio went out.
On who?
Can you hear my mic?
I can.
I can't hear any. Hold on.
Oh, you can't hear it? What did I do?
I don't think you did anything. I think it might be on his end.
It's weird.
So you guys, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I can hear you, Rich, and I can hear you, Mike. So who's out?
Richard lost audio.
I think he reset. He reset his connection.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll come back in or not. But so you brought Edward up for a reason.
I brought him up because we're at that critical point now where we can't waste time with people who all they want to do is mouth off to us and how angry they are about what people are doing. He refuses to channel he's paranoid about what society is going to think if they find out what he's thinking and what he believes.
Mm-hmm.
He's scared to death that the world is going to end for him. He's going to lose everything he has. And I said, you got to stop thinking that way. You've got to be able to tell people what the matter really is. Do it in a civil way. Don't yell at them. Don't castigate them, but tell them that they're wrong and why they're wrong. You can tell me why it's wrong. Tell them. But he won't do that. He won't do it because he's afraid. He's buried himself underneath his laptop so that nobody can really see and understand who he is.
Mm-hmm.
He goes to farmers markets all over the East Coast, right? In Maine. He's a grower of vegetables. He's a grower. He's a farmer. He's got a blueberry field, and he owns a food truck. He caters to wealthy people on the islands, and he puts together these lavish dishes. His wife does. She's not Lebanese, but she's from.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Richard's back. Yeah.
I'm telling Mike what's at the center.
I don't know how far we want to go in public about all that, but
well, all right. Well, you need. I'm going to go back to the basics. You need the fundamental tools, the equipment to put into proper order what the response is, what the proper response is. That's what.
Right, and what you shared with me off camera was that your concern is that, and I don't see this quality in Richard, but I see it in myself, and I see it everywhere. We won't speak our minds publicly about anything anymore.
Who you see that in you?
We're afraid, out of fear of offending someone, offending a politician, or offending a family member, or whatever.
You feel that way?
I feel it. I've always felt it.
Yeah, we all feel it to an extent.
No,
yeah.
I don't feel it at all. I'm sorry, I don't. I just don't. And in fact, I severed my relationship. He's calling on he's trying to reach me through the internet script. He knows that I won't answer. He wants to have a FaceTime when he wants to talk to me. He wants to relieve all the stress he has. I'm just not going to do it anymore.
Uh-huh.
Paul, what do you think? What do you think about the Democrats? Do you think that they're ever going to? Do you think they're ever going to negotiate or work with conservatives?
All right, let me give you a good analogy on that. Okay, when I had a lawn care business. Every once in a while, I was asked by a customer, "Is he okay?"
Yeah.
Okay.
Keep going. Yeah.
All right. So, and I had a customer who would say, I want to extend my lawn into those briars, and I'm going to keep this short. And I say, wow, and I knew what I was up against because those briars were used to coming up every spring, and they were tough to take out, and you had to step on them. You had to literally lay them down and then bush hog. You know what a bush hog is. Okay. And just that's what's happening to the Democrat Party. Them being forcibly evicted from their shelters, how they've hidden what they really stand for. You touched on part of it with this redistribution of wealth. That's really at the heart of why they're so radical. And they've embraced fully the left, and they don't. And if you have any right order at all in your life, I think I do. I have a piece of property that's 90 by 100. That's all I've ever owned, but it's mine, and no one's going to take it. So nobody messes with me, and I speak up and I tell my neighbor when he needs to take up his own trash and not let it blow to my house. You know, I'm being very serious. Those are little things, but when it comes to the Janet Mills, they know where I stand, and if I ever have an opportunity to talk, and I will, because I'm not isolated. The shit's going to hit the fan. I've had it, and we need to have that same resolve.
So it seems like the Democrats are now using force doctrine rather than negotiating with people, right?
What doctrine? What
the force doctrine, right?
Force, yeah.
Yeah. And so they're no longer they don't have any values. It's just about let's go for will to power. But as a Democrat, I don't think all of them were that way, but now they're being kind of lured by that power. But they also have allies all across the West that support them. So like almost every Western country reaffirms every one of their values. So if you're a conservative or you're on the right, you're really just in a small, or you're standing on a hill surrounded by enemies.
Right.
Global, but here's what's bad though. Globally, by all the other groups that aren't Western that actually are looking at you as the oppressor, but then also all the people that are in the West that disagree with you ideologically. The right has to figure this out on a global scale, or we're screwed. Like we're on an island, a little hill. There's not much left.
Well, look, people are afraid. I want to extend just briefly. The Democrat, you asked me what I think of the Democrats in terms of where they are right now. They're being grounded into the ground, and they don't like it. They're systemically being, their whole culture is being crushed, and they don't like it. They're going to find another way to rise up again. They're going to create a new.
What I see is globally, and Rich and I agree with you. I think that goodness, truth, and beauty are surrounded by a horde of demons. And the demons are all coming at that
one source.
What feels like, in the middle, what feels like a surrounded minority, and it's spiritual.
It is, exactly. I was biting at my tongue here. It's bleeding.
It's not political. It's not political.
No, it's that's right. It's spiritual.
And they are losing.
Because they're envious. We have right order, and that is not part of their lexicon. They've lived in disorder, and the only hope they have of coexisting is to grow that disorder. It's an octopus.
Yeah. If Trump fails at this and his cabinet fails, it's over, right? Because because we saw them arresting his lawyers and stuff last time, charging Trump, hitting like people all throughout the country. Bannon that went to jail. They were already politically targeting him before they absolutely hated him on this maximum level. If we have a 3-year window where if we don't get this right, like what Michael was saying before, if we don't get this right in 3 years, I think that it's going to be the dark ages. We'll be monks holding flames, sitting in monasteries.
I would agree with
hiding
that,
the books for 500 years. Yeah,
I would agree with that, but I don't think it's as. I don't think the. Well, it's bad, and I'm not going to try to define how bad it is.
Go to the UK. Go to the UK. Go to Ireland. Go to Europe.
Yeah, no, I don't have to go there. I just came back from Ireland, and
how was it?
I could see it. I could see the. It was great. Because I went to take something. I went to take what I had cherished all these years about Ireland. I'm not Irish, but I wanted it, and I found it, and I'm happy I did. Had it gotten political, it would have been devastating. I'll paint you a little picture. I was always the last guy in the bus. You know what that is? We had a contingent of about 35 people. We had our own private guide, our own private bus. We even had a Catholic priest with us, and he's the one who organized the trip. Because he's from Ireland, he's Irish descent, but every time we got off and looked at the shores of the shoals of Ireland, and all the great wonders of Ireland. I was always and I didn't do this intentionally. Somebody put a hook into my arm and said, "Hey, where are you from?" And they were natives wanting to talk to us, and I didn't want to be invisible, so I spoke with them. Anyway, the last time that happened, we were in Dublin, and we were overlooking the bay because Dublin's on the coast. It's whole Ireland is on the coast, and there was a guy standing there alone, tall man, rather attractive, grayish white hair, and I asked him what he did. You know who he was? He was, you're not going to laugh at this. He was the chief city councilor of Dublin. He was political. And I said, oh, shit, to myself, because I'm going to ask him something. I said, what's your biggest problem? What is your biggest problem? What do you want? What are you doing here today? You're watching us all get on the bus. There's nobody else here. What are you doing standing here? He says, I'm here. Get this. I'm here standing here, figure out how we're going to avoid the crisis that we're facing. I said, what's the crisis? The crisis is that, like, you're going to laugh, but hold on to your chair. He said, the LED lights that we're using in Ireland are killing the bugs. And that was the crisis. And I said, well, it's easy. I said, just stop using LEDs, go back to incandescents. They still know how to make them. Oh, it's not that easy at all. He says they won't, the European Union won't like that, And it's really deep. What you're saying is deep because they control the money. European Union bankers control the money, and Ireland's going to do what they tell them to do. I just thought I'd share that experience with you because it's a microcosm of what's really going on. And you're right. You're right about with these. I'm so glad that you mentioned this about those young children, those young people telling you, cisgender, the cisgender. I don't know how to use that in the right context, but issue that they're addressing. They've already figured out how they're going to take over. It's redistribution of the wealth. Trump's trying to stop it. I think he's going to have some success. We got an issue in Maine now where the net billing, net billing. Have you heard of that? We've been paying for the loss of income that solar power is causing, and so they want to disperse the loss of income. That your bill is going up, even though you don't use electricity, solar power. And if you sign up for solar, your bill will go down, and it'll cause the neighbor who doesn't use it to pay more money. It's illegal. What they're doing is illegal. And Trump said, we're going to stop that shit. And so Sobolewski got all the legislature and the Republicans in Augusta to sign a petition. They send it to Bondi. The president's on it, and he's gonna sue Maine for doing that. They won't get any more. There's another layer of lawfare. And so Trump's going to address it. I was glad that Sobolewski did it, but it's deeply, deeply woven into the fabric all around us. And if we don't fight now, we're going to hang separately.
Would it be morally justifiable for Trump if things are really bad and he can't get this stuff done in his 4 years? Is it morally justifiable if he just stays in power?
Well, I think he's talked about it. He's talked about it, and it's going to be a lot of this shit's going to fly. To get him, but other presidents have served more than 2 terms. Roosevelt did. We know that. I think up to 5 terms. I think.
So you see, what do you think about Conor McGregor in Ireland? Like he's right. He's getting a lot of patriotism and they've been flooded. I think for every 2 people in Ireland who are native, there's 3 that are illegals. They've flooded, and we haven't seen this in mainstream media. I've had to go digging for it. Yeah,
they've been in the streets, marching in the streets. They're mad as hell.
They burned down. Yeah, they burned down hotels, immigrant hotels, and stuff.
Yeah,
many of those.
And not only that, but they can't see doctors. The doctors are all dedicated to seeing illegals. Yeah, because they haven't been treated ever since they were born.
Trump's reelection changed everything. And he just finished his first 100 days. I mean, this whole thing is just getting started. It's just getting started, and I feel good about it. I feel
we need to feel good about it. Don't read the papers. Yeah, I read a review this morning that came out of CNN, and forgive me for reading it, but I want to know what the subhumans think.
Well, this is the moral dilemma, and I actually want to throw this out at you guys because. Our side is starting to use the force doctrine. So instead of following the rules, and I don't mean our side just with like Trump, like you could even go all the way to like Connor, right-wing figures all across the West are going, we can't win this legally in certain ways. So we're just going to just pound it out. is this the right way? Are we doing it right that way? Like, and you can see that on our level with the school boards, right?
Well, Trump's
like
doing it now. Trump's doing that now.
So yeah, so you're seeing this. You're seeing men that are frustrated with the system that's so complicated that you can see it with Tim and Nick going to the school board. They're not sitting there like, "Hey, this is wrong, laying out a thing." They're just going there like a freaking firecracker.
That's what's needed.
Yeah.
You know, we started the show talking about Laurel Libby, and I said, and I got this from Mador, what Maine must have right now is a force of nature.
Yeah.
And
now stop and think about that for a moment. Let that sink in. I mean, I'm still letting it sink in, and I'm using a force of nature has the fullness of what must be. I can't take these people, and you're going to shut me off here. I can't take people that call me. And I said, did you tell? He stood face to face with a member in Hancock County who was the head of a legislator in Hancock County who chaired the committee, and he was afraid to tell her what he thought of what she was recommending. They were at a church, and they were having a dinner, and they had politicians there, and the legislator tried to shut it down because it was a church and the politicians shouldn't be there. Now that's a disordered thinking. You have a constitutional right.
Are we experiencing like a right-wing revolution that's bubbling up in Maine and other places?
No, we're not. Well, yes, it's boiling. If you ever boiled water, I'm sure you have. It starts boiling on the edges because all the heat comes, but it's not boiling in the center. It's just on the edges. And
you're seeing some GOP posting some spicy stuff lately. Like I'm going on Facebook, I'm like we have GOP committees, we have different politicians on the right that are posting things that I'm like, I wouldn't even post that. That's too spicy for me to post.
Like what? What do you define spicy? What do you mean?
Oh man,
sexually? You mean sexually?
No. Spicy is in like, they're like just sitting there saying we needed to start deporting these people. We do. They're illegals. They don't belong here. We need to deport them. That's exactly. If they're illegals, they're not. I read that same article on CNN this morning. They took a poll, an upfront personal poll of people who live in different parts of the country, having to deal with the repatriation that are some for, some against repatriating these immigrants. They took a mother and sent her son to Honduras. He's got a birthright because he was born in America. She's an illegal, but they never addressed that she was an illegal. Yeah.
Until they told you all the strife that she was going through with the courts. And that was the last thing they said. She was in this country illegally. And so they were doing that to elicit pity from those who care about mothers not being separated from their children. So they sent them both back. And I think that's what Trump needs to do.
Do you think that emotional manipulation and weaponization is working as much?
It's not working as much, but it's problematic, but it's not working.
So it's weird because I've been trying to separate this because we, as like society, we've known what evil and bad men look like, right? So like that's the Force doctrine, that's the tyrant, the iron fist. Right. And as women have actually been able to rise up into equal roles, we're finally getting to see what the evilness of women look like. And that's where you're getting character assassinations. But simultaneously, this is where our side has to be careful. We have to preserve the union between men and women because we're going to need good women and good men to fight back against.
Well, that's well said. That's very well said.
Well, and because I think what hit us, our side, and just the West in general, was like we didn't know how to tackle this weird emotional manipulation at a level that was so sophisticated and narcissistic that we just couldn't untangle it. And you just look like a monster if you even confronted these people because they would just cry and weep and go.
Well, we can't be afraid to be called out as looking like monsters. They're going to use everything possible to dissuade you and dehumanize who you are and what you're doing.
It's the Medusa, right? It's the Medusa. You have the feminine spirit, and then it's the collective, right? The poison, the venom, because usually like poison and venom's associated with women. And that's the darker side of women, right? The spewing the venom, the lies, character assassinations, making people
I'm really glad you're bringing this up. I'm really glad you're bringing this up because it can't be defined when you're experiencing it's coming at you, and you really can't define it.
But you, the reason our side needs to learn how to confront that, because you can't, because as a man, you guys know how to confront evil men, right? You confront them like head on. You can't. You have to tackle this strategically a little bit different.
That's
it's,
correct.
It's like, okay, so what happened in Hollowell, we won't rehash all that. I kind of was trying to, I guess, play around with that, like, because that whole scenario was just like a feminine, an evil feminine situation, right? You have victims and all this shit, and then what you can say, what you can't say, language that you can't say. You have someone that said slightly that nothing that even bad, but all of that was like this weird nature. So I was like, how can we defeat this? And it's just,
well, you don't play by their rules. I'll tell you that.
Well, no, you do play by the rules, right? You have to.
You don't play by the rules.
But I did play by the rules, and that's actually how I won the Hollowell thing.
Right. You did in Hollowell the same thing that Tim is doing in court right now.
Yeah.
And what is Tim do? What is Tim doing? What is Tim is being a man.
Yes, and he's using the mirror, right? So how do you defeat,
if they want you to use
the mirror?
If they want you to use pronouns, you don't use pronouns. You can't. Those are the rules I'm talking about. You can't
and that's what I saw Tim do so brilliantly in court. He didn't even have to. He didn't even have to raise a sweat. He just went in there and he was Tim, the truth seller.
I'm convinced that if I'm to move further ahead and use the skill I have to level the playing field, I'm going to do it with Mike and other people of like mind who think in the right order, who have a proper grasp and grip of who they are, their identity. I listened to E. Michael Jones this morning, the guy that we're talking about, and he was talking to this Orthodox Greek, this Russian or Greek Orthodox priest. Russian, okay. And because he talked about so many Russian Orthodox, and they were talking about identity, and it gave me an opportunity to reflect properly on what my identity is. I'm not a white man. I don't see myself as a white man. I don't. I'm Catholic. That's a lot more to me important to me than being white. I'm French Canadian. That's important. That's something that nobody can deny, whether they like it or not. The fact that I'm white is irrelevant. It's just absolute. And I agree with Jones that it's not a racial, it's not a whiteness. This is not what we're defending, what we're protecting.
Right. That's playing right into their hands, which is the color revolution hands. Yeah. And it's the point you make, Richard, on your profile on X about don't let them divide us or divide you from others on the basis of these things, right? Race, whatever.
Yeah.
Sexual. Don't let them do that.
So, but the operative word here is that I'm going to stick with this guy here. I'm putting his finger out. I'm going to point his eye out right there. I'm going to stick with this guy and people like him, like E. Michael Jones, and there are others. And I want what's right. I want what's right for them as well as what's right for me. You cannot defend what you have and who you are unless you're willing to defend others who have it. You don't have a right.
That to answer your question, Richard, or to speak to your point about what the right and whether we use force, right? You seeing evidence that the people are maybe headed in that direction, some right-wing podcasters, et cetera. We need to, at all costs, avoid the revolutionary spirit. The revolutionary spirit. We need to avoid it. But the government has a role to play.
Yeah. I'm all within the framework.
And religion, right? And religion has a role to play.
Yeah, I'm going to work within that context of a free people, of free to believe in God, to practice my faith, defend myself as an American. That's the world I live in. I don't.
And to the point I made earlier, Richard, about the gay issue, the sexual orientation issue. Keep it to yourself. It's sex. Keep it to yourself.
I don't care about sexuality.
End of story. I don't care. Stop talking about it.
Right.
Stop making it public.
Yeah. And you can be quite direct about that. You can be rather rather impudent about it.
Well, but him talking about the revolutionary spirit, one of the worries on our side is if we go forward without having the boundaries set by a Christian doctrine, then we're going to end up becoming just using force doctrine, right? So like we end up just
doctrine.
but I don't mean it like that. But what like
I know exactly what you mean. I'm going to interrupt you because I understand what that force doctrine is, and that's what Christians use. Christians, the generic line of Christians, they use a force doctrine. It's because they don't understand it. They don't understand Christianity. It's a dwarfed, not retarded, but it's just a dwarfed concept of what they think it is, and it's not.
Yeah,
you understand, Mike, what I'm saying?
And so there's actually been small indications on our side that, and I'm not trying to call them out. Well, no, I'm not trying to call out this individual, but like, there's like, so we've had that struggle between like Laurel Libby and like Nick and other people, and he's upset that she's not sharing his posts and stuff, and then Tim was upset too, but they're going online and demanding, right? Force doctrine. That's what I mean by force doctrine. Demanding that you share and comply. So you need that person you want to negotiate with this human being. You want something from them. You want her to share and promote your movement because you feel it's valuable. But you're not reaching out and talking to them. You're not negotiating. You're using force doctrine to try to get as many people upset with that person to force them like the left does, right? To create an outrage mob. That situation I didn't really enjoy. I don't mind calling her out.
I think that's a failed. I think there's something.
I think that's in the DNA of social media.
Yeah.
If you've spun up your political power using any social media platform, then you can easily get trapped into that tactic or that strategy. It's probably more of a strategic issue than it is a tactical issue.
Right.
And
yeah.
I think the remedy to that is to work really hard to be agnostic about likes and about all the metrics that are baked into social media by the forces that have baked those metrics in there to control you.
Yeah.
And to manipulate your psychology.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to avoid that at all.
I don't know how you fit in this paradigm here. I'm learning a lot about you. I think you're probably getting an idea of who I am. But what has happened, and Mike and I have talked about this, and I have to get onto this before I lose Richard, so I'm going to transition.
You're not losing me. Are you kidding? I do this. I love doing this stuff.
I understand, but you've got to work to make a living. I figured, you might head for that door on the side there. Jump out the window.
It's just day off, I think.
Yeah, I got 2 days off. It's 7. I'm going kayaking tomorrow.
Nice.
Can I go?
Yeah, if you want to go.
Seriously, where are you going?
Cadence River, Cadence.
Yeah,
like
the Cadence.
Yeah.
Oh wow, shit.
It's gonna be upstream going against current, so I can get.
I'm not doing that.
Mador, you just had your
leg
chopped.
Did I tell you I had my leg cut open? They put a new knee in.
Oh, jeez, no.
Yeah. Listen, I'm not. All right, so hold on. All right, because there's 2 attempts here to try to derail what I have to say. The malaise that is entered into the human mind is because people do not practice their faith. They don't understand their faith. They're just Christian. It's okay to be Christian. But as a result of that, they seek identity and they hide their identity because they fear reprisal. This is the problem.
Good
false
point.
Human respect is the cancer. You know what? False human respect. In other words, the guy that came here, let's say there's a knock. I'm going to give you a brief snapshot. There's a guy up front right now knocking on my door, and he's running for office. And the first thing I'm going to ask him is, do you stand for abortion? Are you for legal? Well, my position doesn't really have anything to do with that. I answer the damn question.
Yeah. That's that. I love it. I love how
people don't do that. I thought they did, but they don't. This guy that calls me on my other phone, and my other phone has no SIM card, so all I can do is listen to him. Actually, I answered the other night. I could still hear his voice. Maybe it's drowned in my head. I don't want to hear it. But that's what they saw. They seek false human respect. They don't want to give an impression to the fellow man of what they really believe. Because
Yeah,
they're
that's
not
horrible. That's horrible. Literally
Richard,
the
it's
worst
a
thing.
cancer.
Yeah, it is. You're
It's
not
a
wrong.
cancer.
Yeah.
See, and that's what I don't see that in Corn Pop or in Tim or.
You'll see it. I don't. It doesn't matter who it is. You'll see it. If you
But the point
have
I'm
a
trying
mother,
to,
you have a mother-in-law.
but the point I'm making, Paul, is that these guys using X and Corn Pop going to the Augusta School Board and Richard doing the Hollowell thing a year ago.
It's well defined.
and-
It's a well-defined
and-
paradigm that they're living in.
And Tim doing the Gardner activism that he's been doing, they are not using false human respect at all, and it's working. It's working politically.
I mean,
I'm glad to hear that. I'm really super glad to hear that, because I wanted a litmus test on this. I wanted to find out if anybody has done it in their own capacity. And it sounds like you are.
oh, full on.
And I think part of the reason is the DNA of X is different. Than it's a unique social media platform.
Yeah, and which is why I don't proliferate in X, not very often anyway.
Well, you're less likely. You're going to be encouraged to not use false human respect on X, much more so than like all the other, except for Telegram, and maybe a few others. False human respect is the only way you survive.
You're not wrong. And here's the thing: is that the worst thing I've ever done, the biggest draw on energy right now is having that Maine X community account I created on Facebook. It's exactly what you're saying. I feel like when I make posts, I have to actually control my language opposed to X. When I post on X, I can just write freely. Don't even have to think about it. But when I put it on Facebook, I'm like, oh, geez, I shouldn't say it this way. This is, I shouldn't put it this way. And I'm spending more time.
Why can't you just be honest? I mean, without being vile or offensive, why can't you just be honest?
Go ahead.
No, you can go ahead.
No, you answer his question.
Well, I think the problem is that you get sucked into social media and you're going, okay, I'm going to get more shares and more likes and more reactions.
There you go.
If I fit in the mold. When I'm on X, the best thing about X and the most drawing thing is just like, you can throw it out there. Boom. Just
all right,
whatever.
well, we have a responsibility. Now, I just want to define what I'm saying so I'm not misunderstood. I'm not going to tell that guy who wants to put a sign on my lawn, go fuck yourself. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, and I don't mean swearing either, but like but
the thing is, I mean, I will say, look,
I try not to swear. You'll rarely ever see me swear or try to swear.
And so I wanted to be emphatic, and I don't. You can ask Mike. I told my confessor once. I said, what should I do to stop swearing? He says, every time you swear, you'll stop and make an amend that you'll do something nice for those people who had to hear that ugly word. He said, shit. I said, it depends on where I am. How many people do I have to be nice to? So he says, just make up for it. Do atone for that offense. And so I'll buy you coffee next time you go. No, there's too much to lose here. I don't think that my kids are capable of doing what I'm doing right now.
I guess do you feel that the Democrat or I shouldn't say Democrat, the lefts, do you feel that they are an actual enemy now? And I don't mean physically, like we're going to go out and fight and stuff, but do you think that the left has gone, that their perception of us, I don't mean how we perceive them. Most of our side still thinks we can sit there and try and negotiate. And that's where they fail at these school boards, is they go there and they'll have these big, long speeches and they'll email for weeks and weeks, but they had no idea.
They're spiraling down. The more evidence, the more.
Yeah, they are spiraling. They are. But
the more empirical evidence that is laundered in basic straight-faced media is providing an overwhelming evidence that they've lost. They're losing the culture war.
Here's the only thing. Right now, we're in this weird territory where I agree with you, everything that you just said. So this new metamorphosis, this cocoon that they're shedding off, almost like the 1990s liberal Democrat shell, and what's going to be in there is just this raw kernel of socialism and Marxism. Because the people that are the most prominent right now is going to be AOC, Bernie Sanders. They're going around getting hundreds of thousands of people, and
it's going to differ based on where people are. If they're baptized and they have a sense of right and wrong and justice, they're going to be okay with it. I mean, people are concerned about their 401 plans, but they're also concerned about the fraud and the corruption that has been eating away at their equity. They're concerned about that. They're not going to trade one for the other. I mean, they're going to trade one, and it's going to be they're going to want to hold on to their equity because it belongs to them. That's in a sense, you might say that Mike makes right. He's got something to protect, so he's going to become part of a bigger force, and I think that's happening by nature, by default. It's a natural progression, and like we started before earlier, Logos is rising.
So, okay, I guess how can you not categorize them as an enemy? And I'm going to explain why. I've been watching school boards, city councils, everything local, everywhere. I don't think I've ever seen them negotiate or make an exchange with the right where they go, okay, you know what, we're going to ease up on this a little bit just to appease you guys. Right. A friend, a family member, someone who's actually like shares the same vision of the future doesn't act like that. The only type of person that will never ever negotiate with you is an enemy. And we don't look at them that way. We actually will send emails and say, hey, could you please come back a little bit? They're 100% in line with no, you do not get to negotiate with us ever, right? And they're very adamant about that.
Well, I had to take my kids out of school. I took them out of every form of education, and I said, I'm not going to fix you when you're 30 or you're 40, because I'm not going to be here. Most of my kids are at least close to 40. So I got some younger ones, but no, I have to better define my environment. I had to get out of that, but I'm going back into it. I can feel it, and it's a heavy cross. There's a weight of the cross on my shoulder here about what it's going to be like, but I've died to false human respect. I've just died to it. I had to, in order to survive within the context of what I'm called to understand and believe. And I believe in divine providence. I'm a product of divine providence. I realized that this Easter that's just fully who I am. It took a while for me to fully accept it. You think I would have done that the day that I was confirmed as a Catholic, but I wasn't ready for it because I didn't understand it.
I think the answer to your question or your observation, Richard, is offered by yourself and by Corn Pop and by Tim in recent times, and the kind of success that you guys have had locally. And I think that's going to grow, and more people are going to get involved in that way. And you guys you're showing the way. You're pointing the way
you're being a witness. You're being a witness.
And the radioactive, the uranium in what you're doing is the lack of false human respect.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest, if you boil it down to the smallest point, though, is that but if you do,
right.
So there's two ways of addressing the left of these boards, whether
there
right.
Is.
And so if you address them as that they are a part of the community that wants to work with you and you just have different ideas, that's how the right and the GOP has been addressing them the whole time.
Yeah, that's right. It hasn't worked.
It hasn't worked because behind their backs, they lie to them the entire step of the way. They spit in their faces or behind their back. They treat them as enemies.
Listen,
the only strategy that's ever worked is looking at them as an enemy that does not share any values that you do and that will never negotiate with you. So instead of going in there,
that helps.
No, I don't. It's not even just that it helps. It's two completely different strategies and only one's working. Working.
Look,
it's not even about it helps. You don't treat your family member or your community as an enemy, right?
No, you don't.
What you do is you negotiate with them. You have pull and tugs, and they respect you. You respect them. If you're a Christian, they're going to say, you know what? I know that this pride stuff's bothering you. Let's see if we can pull it out a little bit. No, they've said absolutely not. We're going to double down even further. And so what happens is that the right, I think, is finally realizing and they're waking up. Oh, this is actually an enemy who hates us. And this is not the same level as negotiating with a liberal or a Democrat.
Richard, there's been a changing of the guards.
But and mindset, right? And
not just in mindset. The changing of the guard is it's who they used to be. Look, Bernie Sanders just passed the torch to AOC. He visibly and politically and otherwise just handed her the flame and said, "Here, you carry it. I'm not doing it anymore."
Well,
this
and so like, okay, let's look at the strategy. So if like during the school boards, I don't know if you saw the stuff that like Alvin, Courageous Habit, Tim, Nick, what they posted about these women that are on these boards. It's pretty painful to be that type of person and have that stuff come out. But if you look at them as an opponent, as an enemy, then it's fair game, right? I mean, you're just calling out the truth and you're attacking them directly.
Well,
and it's actually destroying them. And like,
if you've got the right tools, it goes back to what I was saying. If you've got the right implements, the right tools in your mind and in your heart as to what it is you believe and why you believe it, there is no negotiating.
So that's forced doctrine is what's happening there.
No, it's not.
It is.
No.
It is.
I would not call for. Look, you got to speak to reason, and you got to speak to reason. And they can't argue with reason.
Yeah, the aspect that's forced doctrine is taking their profile pictures, insulting them directly about their families and who they are.
Online? You mean on X?
Yeah, yep. Not lying about them, just posting, like showing the world who they are, what they've said. That is a form of forced doctrine.
It's what we did, Paul.
Yeah.
You especially Paul Volley with that print newspaper in Portland. They're doing on X almost exactly what Paul Volley did, and I think you were involved in that. I wasn't involved with it.
I was, somewhat.
But what happened, Richard, was we ran a populist campaign to win a referendum on gay rights, adding sexual orientation to the Human Rights Act, and the Christian Coalition published a newspaper that was raw, down and dirty, and went after the issue, and it was very similar tactically.
And residually, what we were able to do is we were able to take from that and the residual effects of it and drive it down some more, double down on it. And
was it effective?
Oh,
yes.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, it was hugely effective.
Oh, very, 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 very effective.
Better than having this softly pussyfooted little like thing that everyone knows that you're just kind of protecting. You know when people are trying to just protect themselves rather than actually fight the issue, right? Yeah. Because they'll coat layers.
You have got to tell them what they want with your children, that they want them. You've got to tell them point blank in the face, you want to impose a culture that'll destroy the life of my child, destroy everything he believes in, and take away his hope and his faith in God. You've got to be willing to tell them that. That's what they want.
Yeah, it's actually worse than that. It's humiliation ritual. They dress up your little boy in a little dress and then later convince him to cut his genitals off in front of public.
Yeah,
and worse, and then announce it to everyone, and then satanic. Make everyone around him to affirm it.
That is satanic.
It's beyond. It's beyond. It's a humiliation ritual.
You can't get beyond satanic.
What they're doing is, could you imagine having an 8-year-old boy that they, in some states, you can't even stop them from doing this, that you're forced to watch them walk around in a dress, and you are forced to use these fake pronouns, call them a girl, and then watch them pump themselves full of drugs, and then later cut off their genitals, and then announce to the world that they are now a female, and you know that you've actually destroyed this person to the very core. There's nothing. This is like a humiliation ritual on a scale never seen before.
You're describing what happened to Elon Musk. You're describing the richest man in the world has lost flesh of his flesh and blood of his blood. His own son was forced into.
When I drive by the churches and I see pride flags draped over them, that's a humiliation ritual. You have a flag that is literally called one of the sins draping over the freaking churches, and most people can't even separate the difference between these type of churches. A lot of people driving, they don't know if it's Catholic or Protestant.
I know the Catholics, so Catholics won't touch them. They'll pull the banners down.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, how can that even be allowed? But within the Christian community, you take this female and you put her in the head of the church, and you drape the church with fucking pride and transgender flags,
and it's pretty ugly. It's
not pretty ugly. That is literally that is desecration and a humiliation ritual. And there's no kid that's going to look at the Christian faith and go, yeah, those guys are tough. No. They're not going to want to aspire to be part. A lot of these kids hate this stuff. And then they watch these Christian groups taking a knee. They're not going to join those people. They're going to go, look at those pussies.
Yeah, but there's a lot more.
Are you kidding? Christians are being humiliated on a scale. They're going through a humiliation ritual by the left on a scale never seen before in my
Richard,
modern
I
history.
went to the Easter Vigil, and there were over 1,000 people there on their knees. See, that's not the world. Yes, I see that like you do, but it doesn't have to be the world that I live in. But it doesn't mean that because I find safety at church that I'm not going to be there telling them what it's wrong. And you've got to die to false human respect. Yes, the time and the place and the means are appropriate. I understand that. We've got to be civil to the extent that we can continue to communicate. But evil is evil, and we've got to tell them what it is.
So we're coming up on 2 hours.
Oh yeah, jeez.
gonna have to.
No, it's been very, very good. I appreciate your involvement.
Yeah, I love these conversations.
But if you do, then I want to challenge you to use whatever credibility you have with the Pine Tree Patriots and Tim and with that whole group that is the wind and the sails of Tim and you and Corn Pop, and get them to take this symposium seriously, because I promise you, if you can get some
we never had access to this guy.
If you can get some sincere, good-hearted Maine people who really are dedicated to saving our state from this insanity, that I can promise you that some strategic decisions will come out of that meeting that would not have happened and would not be possible if you didn't attend the meeting. This guy will help everybody think toward what's good, true, and beautiful for Maine.
Yeah.
And the only thing that the person needs to gain from the symposium, from the event, is an open heart. Bring their opinions. But
Richard, you've been digging in the caves of Mount Doom.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Can you relate to The Hobbit?
Oh, I love The Hobbit.
Okay, you've been digging.
Maine's the Shire,
mining,
right?
Huh?
Maine's the Shire.
That's right. It is the Shire. That's the way I think of it.
Wait. So, who's your favorite? Who did you look up to as a kid? Who's your favorite? This actually tells a lot about people. Who is the favorite character in Lord of the Rings that you, as a kid or even as an adult, that you could identify with, or you would like, and the archetype of that person? Who'd that be for you?
I love Gandalf. I'm telling you.
So,
what about you, Michael?
So I'll do you one better. As a father, we raised the boys on Lord of the Rings, on Tolkien.
Cartoon version?
No, the movies. They had come out at about that time when they were teenagers.
Right.
And when they graduated from high school, my wife and I organized sword ceremonies. My oldest boy was given.
I remember that.
My oldest boy. So what we did was we got 10 men. We assigned them a virtue, more courage, patience, temperance. We assigned the man a virtue, gave him 2 minutes to speak to that issue to the son, to my son. I have 3 sons. So we did that. We had the ceremony. Paul participated, I think, in more than
at
least one of them. And we presented them with a sword. So the oldest boy got Gandalf's sword and a replica that I found online, a real life replica of Gandalf's sword. And my middle son got Aragorn's sword.
Broken or fixed?
Fixed. And my youngest son was given Sting.
Oh, okay. I love it. The Hobbit short sword.
Yeah. The one that glows when the orcs are nearby.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Mike, I want to show you the image that you have on your screen of StreamYard. Right here it is, right here.
Oh, yeah.
So,
can't wait to do this again.
It all comes of the heart, okay? When he started this now with that sword, and we had to define the word courage, and that's a French word from cœur, which is the heart. Courage comes from the heart. It doesn't come from the intellect. It doesn't come from your brawn. It comes from the heart.
Amen.
And the more that you've nurtured your heart into right order, okay, logos rising, the more, and this is where Jones steps in, the more courage you're going to have, and
the more wisdom, right?
And the more wisdom, and wisdom, and and you cited some things along the way that you do, and I think you've got wisdom. You adjust the curve on your bow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys are doing great.
This is great that we can have a conversation like this and not get pissed off at each other. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm too laid back. I think that with like how I write sometimes, and then
you're perfect. Your stuff on X is to die for. Politically speaking, it's very effective. And also your countenance.
Where the hell have you been?
your countenance and your personality are also proving really helpful to Tim, I know, and to Blanchard. What's his first name? Cornpop.
Nick.
Nick, yeah, to Nick. And I want to meet. I want to meet.
I know Nick.
I want to meet the Ukrainian. What's his name?
Pavel.
Yeah, Pavel.
Yeah.
He did a great speech to the Augusta School.
I know. Did he gets arrested? Ends up in jail.
Your idea. It's my wife pulling it. Your idea to get everybody in a craft beer pub or something and play Tim's songs. That would be so much fun.
Play what?
Yeah.
Tim, the Truth Slingers songs. He's done a whole.
He played that for me. I kind of like.
Well, he's done like a dozen of them.
Yeah, but before you go, did you guys ever read like The Art of War at all?
Oh yeah.
Do you know the part that they're talking about like going to war and like resource management and stuff? I think that what's happening on the right is that we actually waste a lot of resources where, let's just say like Heidi Sampson gets like 50 people, they drag them down to a hall and then they sit there and just lecture to them for 2 hours. Every bit of that could actually be done on the internet where way more people can be seen. But the things that we can't do is actually build as good bonds and connections, which has to be at taverns, which has the actual, like, we need to, if people meet up in person, we got to strip those stupid lectures away. No one likes it. They're insufferable. They're insufferable.
I'm gonna take a leap here in what you just said. What everybody has to do, and I think that's a good suggestion. But whatever he has to do, and you're really gonna hear a lot of stuff when you do that, and I guess it's good if you've got the time to sort it and to deal with it. But I've always worked from a very fundamental point, a very fundamental basis for who I am as a person. It's my identity. You have to understand your identity, and for me, what that means is knowing God's will, and you've got to have a sense of where God is calling you. You can't work without that, and I'm not going to compromise on this. It doesn't mean that we all have to understand it the same way.
But before we go, just something I like to break down things and stuff, and I get a lot of people like Alan and with Parents' Rights and Education. They're always telling me to get emails. They like to create email lists and send it out. And what I found is like, why are we doing that? Like, okay, emails to gather all the people, and then the email just has a name, and we have to flood them all. But if we want to target a school board, so what I've tried to do is I've tried to just use. Why can't we just use Facebook? You literally have someone's entire profile most of the time, their contact information. And so the Maine X community, like if someone has to go, if there's going to be an election, freaking just post who you vote for. You don't need to even put their positions. Just say, these are your people. You vote for them. You get out there and get your friends to vote. And I don't know how much influence it's had, but damn, the last 2 elections that we've had were write-ins, and they annihilated the leftist opponent. And they emailed them, but I think that actually these posts on Facebook are 1,000 times better. 1,000, because do you check your email and you get? I hate fucking email, or I hate email. Like they're like, hey,
you owe me a coffee.
Yeah, I did, but no, but really think about it. Like, does anyone actually like emails? They're already archaic. No one even
No,
uses them.
I mean, I look for mics and I sort and stuff like that, but
But they're miserable, aren't they? Like, do you
Yeah.
want to sign up for Laura Libby's email? Do you want to sign up for every
No.
politician's freaking email? Why
no, because
would
I
you-
don't buy because I don't
That's
I-
boomer tech.
I don't
That's
buy
boomer
Mary
tech.
I don't buy Mary Kay, so I'm not gonna.
Well, and
All right, I'm gonna
Okay,
close
okay.
this thing off.
okay.
publicly
He's
anyway.
like,
And then I got to go back and delete that thing. That we
which
just
thing?
said.
Oh, yeah.
Hold on. All right, I'm gonna end it.